This is the word count for the guide. What the fuck? Mydei or Midimos, whatever Tribbie calls him, whatever he's called, he's Gilgamesh, okay? That's all we're gonna go with. Gilgamesh is another imaginary man coming to Stariel, of course. Yep, crazy, I know, he's imaginary. He's practically everything Blade wanted to be, and as someone who has both Blade and his signature weapon, 100,000 is indeed reachable for Gilgamesh. We'll be going over his kit, light cones, teams, relics, and a bunch more, as well as his synergies, of course. Make sure to subscribe so I can make better quality videos, and for this part of the guide, I will summarize the kit in a simple way to understand, but I cannot promise you that the images and numbers shown here will be 100% the final product. But the attacks, animations, combos, and of course the rest of the guide are always going to be 100% up to date until we get new units like Castorice. Anyways, let's quickly take a look at the important traces before we go directly to the kit. While in the Vendetta state, which we will see what that is later, he will not exit the state when receiving fatal damage, and his current HP will go down to 1 instead. This can happen up to 3 times in a single battle, so make sure to use those 3 times very scarcely, because that could cost you your DPS. And also, while in the Vendetta state, Mydei is completely immune to crowd control, so you cannot stun him, you cannot paralyze him, you cannot do anything to him, so he will always be active on the field. And finally, when Mydei's max HP exceeds 5000 HP, for every 100 extra HP he has, he increases the crit rate by 1.6% up to a maximum of 48%, which is exactly how Aventurine works with his crit rate. And for each 100 points of Mydei's max HP beyond 6000, the charge Mydei receives from enemy targets' damage is increased by 2.5%, and his incoming healing is increased by 0.5%, tallying up to 4000 HP in excess. This means that the damage increase from the enemies has a max increase of 100%, and the healing has a 30% increase, which comes out to 10,000 max HP while in battle, so that is the number you will need to be aiming for to get the full effect. Honestly, one of the strongest traces I've ever seen, except maybe like Acheron. As for his actual kit, I will skip the basic attacks because I always do. So for his skill, which is the phase 0, I would call it, he consumes 50% of his current HP and deals damage to 3 targets, the main one and a bit less to the adjacent ones. Again, there are 2 other phases for this skill, but I have reserved those for the talent, which we will look more in depth in a second. For his technique, he pulls enemies, and once he enters in battle, he will taunt them for 1 turn, and his talent will gain 50% charge. For Mydei's ultimate, it regenerates 20% of his max HP, and he gives himself 20 points of charge. He also will be dealing 3 target AoE damage and taunt the enemies he hits for 2 turns. And now let's look at the talent. For each 1% of his HP lost, he will gain 1 point of charge. When his charge reaches 100 for the first time, he will consume it and enter the Vendetta state, restoring 25% of his max HP, and he will advance himself by 100%. While in the state, his max HP increases by 50% of the current max HP he has, and his defense drops to 0. Yes, 0. And for the charge meter, this one can go up to 200 charge, so you can have a total of 200, but you can only use up to 150 each time. Now for the phases of his skill. Phase 1, Kingslayer Be King. At the start of Mydei's turn, he will automatically use phase 1 of his skill, consuming 35% of his max HP, instead of the original skill 50%, and will deal increased damage and similar AoE. As for his second phase, when charge reaches 150 points, while in the Vendetta state, Mydei will gain 1 extra turn, he will advance forward, and will automatically use the phase 2 skill, Godslayer Be God, which is the final skill state, dealing massive damage. It's good to mention that all of these will be automatic, so you don't really need to be doing anything. And unfortunately, these do not accumulate extra charge while he attacks, so you can only get it outside of these skills. Outside of these skills means getting hit by the enemy or consuming HP yourself. If he receives fatal damage while in the Vendetta state, Mydei will clear any charge you have accumulated and will exit the state, restoring 50% of his max HP. This basically just makes him almost immortal, so you can't really kill him, but some one-shotting enemies or very fast enemies might kill him anyway. Before you build your Mydei, make sure to prioritize his talent above everything else, since it is the most important part of the kit. With both Kingslayer be King and Godslayer be God, the two better phases of your skill, being also included in the talent. After you're done with that, level up your ultimate, and your skill is the last to level up. Basics don't matter. Don't level up your basics. If you basic on Mydei, you suck. Gilgamesh undoubtedly wants everything that Honkai Starl has, so he can add it to the Gate of Babylon, but for your build's sake, one of, if not his best in slot, is the Longevous set, or Longevous, which is made for characters like Mydei. Scholar is another option you can definitely use, since he deals damage through his ultimate and skills, and if you play it right, you can ult into a skill that will definitely destroy anything standing on the field. And yes, both of the better phases of your skill do count as skill damage, or they count as a skill. For planner sets, Ageless can be a good option, since you do want to reach 12,000 HP while you're in battle, so more HP means better Mydei. Glamoth is a great option as well if you run him fast, or you have someone like Asta that will boost him to 160 speed, but I wouldn't really be recommending Asta, since he doesn't scale very much off of attack. Finally, Salsoto can be something to put on him as well, since he does pretty good damage with his ultimate. It's nothing too crazy, but it is a very good option as well. Lastly, since the phases of the skill actually count as skill damage, this means they count as a skill, Rutilant Arena is actually very good, combined with something like Scholar for insane skill damage increase. It might be a little difficult to reach the requirement for this increase to happen, but I believe if you can do it, this is pretty good as well. As for the stats and substats, he really wants the most HP possible, so HP on everything can be an option, although I think going with crit body can work better. Since Blade can get up to 7,000 or more HP with that build, Mydei definitely can because his base max HP is actually higher than Blade's. As for your substats, you can freely run him without speed as well, going with the Yun Li path and taking as much damage as possible, which is my more recommended path. Other than that, you need to be looking for HP percent no matter what happens, especially to max out one of the traces and get the most value out of it. Other than HP percent, any crit stats are very welcome, with crit damage being a little bit more favorable since he does gain 48% plus the base 5, so he starts at around 50 if you max out his trace. So in this scenario, I would be recommending crit damage over crit rate. Although he doesn't have a billion swords as his best in slot, he does have a great light cone that gives him a lot of buffs and also gives more opportunities for the girls to fangirl even more for him, which is honestly acceptable. Anyways, his signature increases the wearer's max HP by 18% and the incoming healing by 20%. When skilling or ulting, consumes 6% of his max HP and increases the damage of the ultimate or the skill, whichever one you pressed, by 30%. If this effect consumes more than 500 HP, which should be all the time, additionally increases the damage by 30%, so a max of 60% for every ultimate or skill. If the current HP is not sufficient, this effect will get him down to 1 HP. This of course is tailor-made for him, but what if I told you about a light cone you have that worked perfectly for him and it's completely free? It's this one, Ninja Record. This event light cone is going to be a fantastic replacement for free-to-play players because it not only gives crit damage but also increases his max HP, making it a perfectly fit light cone for him for absolutely 0 pulls. Flames of Far is another fully free-to-play light cone that might interfere with his HP loss, so I would never recommend this one because you're basically breaking your Mydei from having his full kit potential. As for gacha light cones, a Secret Vow is pretty good, it can give you a lot of damage, and of course, if you have Blade's light cone, it is fantastic, making use of Mydei's kit to the fullest. In summary, free-to-play players are partying very hard right now, with Blade fans pulling their last 3 hairs on their head, knowing how much power creep is going against Blade right now. Now for an important section of this video, the teams Mydei is going to be good in. Granted, most of his best teams do include Tribbie, but I'll be going over Tribbie excluded teams as well, as of course a free-to-play team. We will be going over the characters he synergizes with, and I'll give you the base team, and you can replace anyone with anyone you like, because almost any character I mentioned here is pretty much replaceable by the other, in case you don't have any units shown here. Alright, synergies. Characters like Lynx will be absolute king or queen for his team comps, giving him max HP increases, as well as Tribbie for her scalings with high max HP allies, and of course other buffs. Other notable units are Sunday, RMC, Sparkle, and even Bronya being very good, having good crit damage increases and advance forwards for Mydei, letting him have a lot of turns while also being very buffed. Bronya isn't going to be as strong as the others like Sunday and Sparkle or RMC even, but she is very useful nonetheless if you don't have the other ones. Another healer apart from Lynx is Ho-Ho, charging his ultimate up faster, which obviously gives him the max skill faster as well. This can also apply to Tingyun as a support, but I wouldn't really recommend her because you would only be using her to charge his ultimate faster, which I think you could do way better if you just put Bronya in there. Before I show you the team comps, Fu Xuan is a very bad idea as your support because she takes away his HP losses for herself and she slows down Mydei heavily. So Fu Xuan is a no-go if you want to use Mydei. As for the classic S-tier supports Ruanmei and Robin, they can work pretty well because they give a lot of damage increases, and in my opinion, I think Ruanmei actually ranks below Robin in this specific scenario, because not only does Robin have an advance forward, Ruanmei also delays the enemy's turns, reducing Mydei's hits taken, which is obviously going to slow him down massively as well. So if you want to use him, no Fu Xuan and no Ruanmei. And finally, here's the team comps. I'll give you his best team, and the replacements for the main cast are going to be below each character, so you know where and what to replace. The first and best and obvious team, of course, which was also seen on my Tribbie guide, go check that out, is of course the Gilgamesh Premium team with Mydei, Tribbie, Lynx, and another flex slot. Now I think for the flex slot, there are two best units, and one of them is obviously Sunday, and the other one is Robin. Robin here buffs Gilgamesh, Tribbie, and can also advance forward them as well, giving them even more turns and energy. Plus, she can also buff Tribbie's personal damage with her follow-up attacks. And for Sunday, he is going to be focusing a lot more on Mydei, but Sunday can get Mydei's ult up faster, meaning he can be fully charged for the battle faster, leading to a very fast maxed Mydei. Other options you can use for supports are Linksha, Locha, Ho-Ho, and Gallagher, with, in my opinion, the better units being Lynx for obviously the max HP, Locha and Gallagher being in the same spot because of their very skill point friendly kits, and of course the healing area they put around enemies when you hit them, which is something Mydei can actually benefit from and almost doesn't need a healer after that. And as for some replacements for the flex slot, we have Pela, Jiao Cho, Robin and Sunday as we mentioned, Remembrance MC, Sparkle, and if you are in a very special case and you want to use Tingyun for the energy only, you can use Tingyun for the energy only. Of course, if you are not going to be getting Tribbie, you can obviously put a Robin Sunday combo or a Sunday RMC combo, or you can basically mix some of the units from the flex slot over to the Tribbie spot. And now, here's a fully free-to-play team that Mydei can be in. All units are basically free or easily accessible, so if you just started or are starting again and don't have any of these units that I mentioned before, this can be a team that will be for Mydei until you invest more into him or obtain more characters. And if you want to replace the Remembrance MC with somebody else, that would not be a good idea. You can mix and match with Gwenaifen, Bronya, Pela, and Tingyun on the other slot, but the team will be significantly worse. So getting RMC for Mydei is going to be very good. Now, let's have a look at the Eidolons and especially the E1 I was talking about. Godslayer Be God, which is the second phase of your skill, will deal full AoE damage to all enemies and will deal the same damage he deals to the primary target, meaning all damage is equal to all enemies since the primary target takes the most damage. Now all of them will be taking the same as the primary. This basically just makes him very good at killing AoE stuff, so teams of enemies that are 3, 4, 5 will be very easy, and they will also be taking a lot more damage than usual. E2, it ignores defense when he is attacking, and each time he heals, 40% of that healing will be converted into the charge of Mydei's max HP. E4, when Vendetta State is active, he gets an extra 30% crit rate, and additionally restores 10% of his max HP after getting hit. This obviously ties in very well with his E2, and also makes him survive a little longer. And finally for E6, When he enters battle, he will immediately enter the Vendetta state without you needing to charge anything, and the charge required for the Godslayer Be God skill, which again is the good one, this will be lowered to 100 points out of 150. The phase 1 of the skill was previously 100, but now both of them are, so I believe Godslayer Be God will always be activated, and you can forget about the other skill. I can't really say anything else about E6, it's just very good. It will always give you the absolute most damage, and you don't even have to charge anything. You can just start going at it, you can just kill anything. I don't think you'll have a problem if you get his E6. So, should you pull him? Yes, he's hot. Depends. I don't think he's that good of a unit that he's a must pull, but I think he's a pretty good addition to a lot of people's accounts. He looks like a pretty good unit in general, and he might potentially lead the new HP meta, which Honkai Star Rail might have in the works. The Unlimited Blade. Thanks for watching. I'll try to keep my guides a little more visually interesting and better, but what I want from you guys is to subscribe, so I know my hours spent on the videos are going to be very worth it. See you on the next video. Not sure what that will be, but I'll be seeing you later. Peace.